How you doing, folks? Well, it is currently a stifling 29 degrees in Ireland and my camper van is out of commission. This displeases me greatly, so let's put it right by fitting a new exhaust. Now, for those of you playing along at home, you may remember that my turbo was dripping oil when I ran it the last time, but there's a bit of a pool of oil under there now, which is not entirely encouraging. So I'm going to just investigate and see if it is actually the oil seals in the turbo are gone, or if it's just a pipe union on the top. I'm hoping it's the pipe union, but these things rarely go according to plan, so it probably is the seals in the turbo. Anyway, that's the eternal optimist in me. So I'll have a slither under, I'll check it out and I'll report back with my findings, but we're going to focus on installing the exhaust today anyway. So I actually bought a brand new exhaust for it. My original intention was to get a place to do it in Trim, to make a new, a place called Trim, by the way, in Ireland, if you don't know where that is, to make a new exhaust downpipe. They wanted €265 for it. I bought a new exhaust, including back box and all the fittings and mounts and everything like that, for 240. So, yeah. Now, the only thing I did do is I actually welded a flexi into it. So here is the new exhaust downpipe with the flexi welded into it. The reason I installed the flexi is because the old one actually fractured here, and then it eventually fractured here as well. So I reckon the vibrations of the engine are too much for the exhaust. So as that doesn't happen again, the flexi should take care of it. I know theoretically they shouldn't need it because the mounts for the exhaust are actually on the engine, so the vibration of the exhaust should go with the vibration of the engine. But it's a belt and braces type thing, and yeah, at least that's that done. So don't look too closely at my welding. It's okay. I mean, it'll hold, but it's not the tidiest in the world. Okay, so the good news is that the oil leak doesn't seem to be coming from the turbo, which is amazing actually. The bad news is it's coming from above it somewhere, so I actually have to find out where it is coming from, but that's not such a big ordeal. It's probably the rocket cover gasket or cam cover gasket. So, simple enough fix. I did have the cam cover off, if you remember, to do the cam timing, so I might have just disturbed the seal there. Not the biggest problem in the world, but still needs to be fixed all the same. So anyway, I'll get to that at a later stage. I won't bore you with that one. But right, so let's get the exhaust installed. We're starting from a point where there is no exhaust on the van at all at the moment, okay? So we're literally going from the flange on the turbo plenum, around to the back box and across, okay? So there's literally, I took off the back box and the, let's just say the downpipe came off of its own accord. So yeah. Okay, so these are the three major components, okay? It's a nice short exhaust, not exactly a difficult thing to install. The first thing I'm going to start with is the downpipe, which has the flexi welded in. You don't need to weld the flexi in. I just decided I wanted to mitigate the risk of the thing breaking again. It was probably fairly close to breaking anyway, but yeah, for the moment let's just get that installed. So because my engine is an AHU, which is a 1.9 TDI, I actually have a spacer I need to install. So the installation is slightly different, but basically the same. You don't need a spacer if you're installing it on a standard engine. That's the old flange that broke off, so you can see it's pretty bad. So obviously that's gone. Now the other thing you'd have to do is, if you're installing the exhaust on an AHU engine, what you have to do is, there is a return lip that I had to cut off, which was here. It kind of comes around and you have to cut that off. So I've cut that off obviously there as well. So yeah, anyway, let's bring that underneath the van and we'll basically bolt on the flange, and then we'll worry about our back box. Fortunately enough, I remembered to bring my car creeper up with me when I was coming up, so I'm not having to slide around on the ground, which is nice. So, yeah, and the other thing as well that I thought was very nice was the fact that this exhaust, although it was very economical, insofar as it wasn't very expensive, actually came with a full fitting kit, including new exhaust mounts, which I thought was brilliant. So, yeah, I mean, definitely a nice little surprise there. Now, I'm not going to use those mounts because I actually have the mounts. The new mounts already fitted to the van. I actually only replaced them recently. So, yeah, the old ones will be staying on. The new old ones. This is where a third hand would be ideal, but I don't have one. Yeah, I'm getting dripped on here, and that's really not pleasant. Okay, I'm kind of struggling a little bit here because of the fact that what I did at one stage was I had to drill right the way through the back of the basically the stud was ripped out of the turbo. So what I did in order to fix it was I actually drilled right the way through and put a nut on the back. But for whatever reason I can't get the bolt through. I need a longer bolt there anyway, to be honest, because that has to go through the through that plate like that. So I literally have no bolt there. So that's not ideal. So yeah, I'm kind of stuck here now at the moment. Yes, I'm taking it back off again. I'm going to have to rethink this situation, because you can't be going around with only 3 bolts in your flange, you know, that'd be just ridiculous. Okay, round 2. So what I did was I opened out the hole a little bit for the bolt to go through, because essentially what needed to happen was the bolt needed to go through diagonally. Now the bolt can go through diagonally, it's in already. So it'll be the first one I put in. And where is my adapter plate? There it is. So now this is the first bolt I'm putting in, because it's the most difficult. Now there's a lesson in here, folks. Basically, when you're putting an exhaust on, don't tighten any bolts until all the bolts are in, because you're going to need wiggle room to adjust things. So that's essentially what I did here. Alright, so that bolt is in. Well, it started anyway. We get the other long one down the bottom. As I said, this long one, they normally wouldn't be as long as this, but they're coming out the other side and there's enough to go onto them. There is threads there, they're just not very good threads, and instead of ripping out the threads altogether, I put the bolt in, just put a nut on the back. You know, say what you want, but I didn't think it was a bad job. In fairness, it actually held the exhaust in place. It wasn't the flange that fell off, it was the rest of the exhaust. So that kind of says it all, really, doesn't it? So now I'm starting to tighten up the first of the bolts that I put in. I'm not going to tighten it all the way, as I said. What we'll do is, once we have the back box and everything on, then I'll come back around to tighten everything. But I'm not saying leave it loose, but leave yourself a bit of wiggle room. Okay, so that's grand. So there's a start on all of those bolts now. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slither out, and I'm going to start on putting on the back box. And yeah, that's a pretty straightforward job. Well, after saying it now, it won't be straightforward because I'm after saying it. It would have been a straightforward job if I hadn't opened my mouth. So anyway, let's persevere nonetheless. Installation is the reverse of removal, only you swear in different places. So I have mounts on it. This exhaust is painted in grey paint. I'd say it'll rust as soon as I do the dishes in the van when we're on a camping trip. But yeah. Anyway, nonetheless, we'll fit it, and hopefully it'll be all right. So we need bolts, and as I said, there was a full fitting kit with this exhaust, which was nice. So at least there was that. And what we do then is I'll just offer it all up here. See how we're looking. Okay, so what I can do now is I can actually there's nuts on the engine mount or the exhaust mount on this end here. So I'm going to take these off, and we'll slide the exhaust onto the pipe and onto that end, and then we can get the bolts in on the other side. And remember what I said, folks, leave everything loose until you're ready to tighten everything. Because even if you think you have it all except one bolt in, you know damn well it'll be that one bolt that just will not go in for you as soon as you try and fit everything. Ask me how I know. Trust me, I've been that soldier many a time. Alright, okay, so we should slide that on there. Okay, lovely, that fits nicely. Alright, so it's just on loosely there. Let's get one nut on at least. That'll hold it in position while we jockey everything around and get it all lined up. We just need to twist it slightly. You know what? Installing the Flexi makes such a difference to how easy this job is. Alright, so we have two longer bolts there, but I don't think we need those long. Yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll use the long bolts because I don't need them for anything else. And it comes with these brass nuts and lock washers, so we'll use them as well. And I'll probably change the nuts down the other end as well then afterwards. So yeah, let's get that installed. There's actually more fasteners in the kit than you would even need. Yeah, see, that little bit of wiggle room down the back does make all the difference. Okay, so I'm going to use two more of those brass nuts on the engine mount on the other side. So, sorry, not the engine mount, the exhaust mount, I keep saying that. I bet you the tailpipe won't fit. It's going too easily. Alright, so there's all our bolts are in, okay, as far as here. And what we now need to do is we now need to fit our tailpipe. And I bet you, as I said, it won't line up. And if it does line up, I will be a very, very happy man. A very surprised man as well. So let's take the sticker off. Come off on one piece. Oh, it lines up beautifully. That was always the issue with the other exhausts, with pointing up in the sky. So yeah, we'll be able to get that on now as well. Alright, so it comes with a gasket as well, so we shall install the gasket. There is actually a gasket for the turbo end as well, so I might just loosen off those bolts and put it in. Why didn't I think of that, to be honest with you? I only thought to look for a gasket afterwards. I'm sure I'm not the only one who finds myself with music going through my head when I'm working on a car. Today is a band called Everything Everything, and they are a very, very good band from, I believe, Manchester. Indie kind of rock band, a few electronic influences. And, well, worth a listen if you're looking for something new. Check them out. Everything Everything. They have some very disturbing music videos, I have to say. Alright, okay, so there's the tailpipe on, the back box is basically on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working my way back and start tightening everything up. Before I do that, I'm going to just pop that exhaust gasket in, and at least I can say I did it. If you ever find yourself doing this job and the spanner hasn't slipped off the nut and cracked you in the face at least once while you're doing it, take everything off and start again, because you've clearly done something wrong, because it's essential that you do that at least once when you're doing a job like this. So yeah, anyway. Right, yeah, next thing to do, I have the flange tightened up fully on the turbo end, which is nice. So next thing to do is to tighten up the pipe going into the back box, tighten up the exhaust mounts, and test it out, see how everything is. Now, it's important to note that you don't need to over tighten absolutely everything on the exhaust, okay? Because if you ever need to take it off again, it's going to be an absolute headache if everything is stitched. So yes, I'm using the impact gun, but I'm not going to wang it in all the way, like, you know, just enough that it's tight and it's home. See, that's absolutely fine now. It's just enough to have compressed the spring washer there. So that's grand, and at least I know now if I ever need to remove that, it will come off again. in theory. In practice, probably won't. But anyway, right. Next thing to do is tighten up the nuts and bolts in here and on the other end, and then that's basically it. To be honest with you, it's a pretty straightforward job, unless you have seized fasteners, and that wouldn't be uncommon, to be honest with you. And the only solution for it is really try and weld a nut and weld a nut on if you can, and you have access to a welding plant. You can do it that way, but more often than not, you end up just drilling stuff out, and it's an absolute headache. I know I said I brought the car creeper, so I wouldn't be slithering around to the floor. Sometimes it's just quicker, to be honest with you, to do that though. Alright, that's that. Last thing is the two nuts on the other end. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is not going anywhere. Well, it is. We're going on a trip with this camper van at some stage, but it's not going to fall off. So let's, before I take it off its jacks, let's start the engine and have a listen, make sure everything's sounding the way it should. I'm going to leave the microphone down here with you guys so you can actually have a listen. Alright, that's all sounding pretty good there. So the last thing now for me to do is just have a quick slither around, just put my hand over all the unions, make sure there's no leakage or anything like that. And I think we can sign off on this job then. So pretty handy little one actually, to be honest with you. So yeah. What's nice to see is that the Flexi is actually absorbing the vibrations from the engine lovely there. So you can see the pipe here is vibrating away merrily, and this part here isn't so much. And that was what caused the pipe to break in the first instance. So definitely a worthwhile modification in my mind. Weird being able to see the back of the flywheel on the engine. Alright, so I'm happy. So I'm going to leave it there, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will chat to you in a future video. I've plenty more exciting stuff coming up with both the Beetle and the MG, and hoping to get away on a trip in this, so I might film a little bit of footage of that, you never know. We'll see how things go. But yeah, I'll chat to you soon. Thanks for watching.